RealAgriculture.com's coverage of the 2011 Farm Progress Show in Regina is brought to you by Morris. It's the AgMedia Roundtable on RealAgriculture.com. So we're here today for the AgMedia Roundtable with Lyndsey Smith. She's the editor of Grainews. Welcome today, Lyndsey.
Hello, Shaun.
Okay, Lyndsey, we're at the Western Canadian Farm Progress Show in Regina. It is raining like crazy outside today. We're getting soaked.
Yes.
I would say that seeding in the southeast part of the province is officially finished.
Yes, actually, I would say even larger areas in the southeast, but the southeast for sure. The crop report just came out yesterday, and I think a total of 3% progress was made last week, which I think is a pretty clear indication that with this rain, what's out there is what's out there.
It's all over.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, what did you kind of find with some of the newsy items of the show?
Well, I thought it was it's been kind of interesting. The innovations showcase area is far, far larger this year. There's some neat stuff in there, and certainly got a bit more play. What I found interesting, the attitudes are quite mixed. I think every show kind of usually has a kind of a vibe to it that you can kind of pick up, but this year, and I don't know if you found this, everywhere from, pretty happy with where farmers are pretty happy with where they're at to downright scary.
We did a talking to farmers segment yesterday, and we were talking to farmers about crop conditions. Mm-hmm. We got everything from 0% seeded to the best seeding conditions I think I've ever had on my farm.
Yeah, I've actually heard near ideal.
Right.
Of course, I would say ideal, but near.
Yeah.
And although a common complaint, certainly around here and even north here, we need to eat. Crops certainly have come up and look okay, but they're a little stalled out.
Well, it's pretty sad when yesterday it was like 20 degrees and people were saying, oh, it's so hot.
Yeah, exactly. When 22 degrees and partly cloudy seems hot. Yeah, it hasn't been very warm. So.
What kind of show do you think it was for a lot of the exhibitors? Did you hear a lot of business being done?
Today, especially, of course, the rain drives everyone inside, so it seems a lot busier today.
You hold it to the trade show, but it's not the beer garden.
Yeah, right. But I've spoken with quite a few exhibitors who've been pretty happy with the amount of traffic and the interaction with the farmers that are here. It seems that they're pretty optimistic that it'll be a good show for them. I've actually spoken with quite a few new exhibitors. I think there's something like over 100 new exhibitors this year. And certainly, I've been coming for several years, and with these 6 new arenas here, it's just huge. It's just massive. There's a lot.
It definitely seems like the show sort of, it seems like it's on the rise a little bit. It feels that way this week.
Yeah, it does, and I would agree, and certainly just in the past 3 years, let's say, I think every year they've added on space and exhibitors and new features, and it's there's a lot going on, and it seems like there's something new every year. So.
Well, we've seen some really interesting things this week. We saw protesters.
Yes.
There was protesters.
Pretty quiet protesters.
It was a quiet protest.
There were signs.
It wasn't exactly like in Vancouver. It wasn't. Pro-single deskers weren't tipping over cars and burning.
There was no burning of.
There was just a few signs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's been a bit of an issue this week. There's obviously some lobbying in both ways kind of going on.
Yeah.
But overall, pretty quiet in the regards to some of the possible changes in the board.
Yeah, and as media, we had a chance to speak with the chair yesterday. I think. It was well, and you had it on your site, that it was a good interview and those sorts of things, but I don't know, I think for many it's a done deal, and let's just move on and see what things are going to look like.
It's just as isolating as ever.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, I don't know, I think things have quieted down. I think there's, there was that group that there will always be the vocal pro-board and the anti-board, and they are still just as vocal, but I think for most farmers, they kind of just want to know what it's going to look like when it's gone.
Yeah. I always think of Saskatchewan as like innovation.
Yes.
Do you find that there's a lot more innovation at a show like this, like in terms of products? Like, hey, I discovered a new way to, handle grain.
Better gate latch. Yeah, what I really find neat about this, and more so than, let's say, Ag Days in Manitoba or something like that, and I don't know what it is about Saskatchewan. It has a long history of farmers in their shop welding a solution to their problem and not waiting for somebody else to do it. And look at how many seeding manufacturers are here
Right.
that either have been bought out by big companies or are their own and
Yeah.
are growing like gangbusters that market all over the world.
But even for
And-
the bigger manufacturers, it's a good timing of the show to show here's our new prototype. or
Yes.
here's
Yeah, and
the-
there are a lot of prototypes this time.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, like a lot of, that's, so if that will be what ends up in the market exactly, well, maybe not. But yeah, the show, and I don't know, maybe that's a new, certainly by the amount of space they've given the new innovations and stuff like that. Like, I think the show has always typically been a big launching point for new piece of equipment or new changes.
So why does all that innovation come out of Saskatchewan? Is it because there's different...
There's a lot of time between rider games that you gotta do something other than paint your face.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, and it's funny because I often think I don't know why Saskatchewan, and I don't know what the history is there of why, but it's sort of like Winnipeg, for whatever reason, produces a lot of amazing music, and
Right.
and they have this amazingly vibrant music scene and a lot of homegrown talent, and I think sometimes in Winnipeg I think it's the weather, like there's nothing else to do in the 8 months of winter and it's bloody cold, so you stay inside and you make music and that's what you do.
Yeah.
So in Saskatchewan, I don't know, I mean, what is it that
But do you think
people into the shop?
do you think the agronomic challenges are different, that it forces people to be innovative?
I mean, certainly it's got the most arable land of the prairie provinces, right? So there's just more going on, I suppose, but
You can only turn so many watermelons
into hats.
watermelons into hats.
Yeah, and before you're like, I should weld something.
Yeah.
I'm done with this watermelon hat. Yeah, I don't know, and I've thought about that because I live at Lumsden and I've met a couple of people who have in their family, several people in their families that hold patents to different egg things.
There's a company here that has a
and whatever.
patent booth. You can actually
Yes,
apply for
and they're
patents
probably
at the
very
show.
busy because I live at Lumsden and I've met a couple of people who have in their family, several people in their families that hold patents to different egg things
There's a
and
company here that
implements
has
and
a
whatever.
patent booth. You can actually
Yes,
apply for
and they're
patents
probably
at the
very
show.
busy because, and it's something actually that I love with Grainews and because those are some of the things that we try and get into the magazine and whenever I'm talking to farmers, they'll go back and they see a problem or they want to fix something or make it better or whatever and they just get into their shop and they start doing it and tinkering and figure something out and it's really neat. Yeah, and I don't know.
With such variability in a lot of the cropping conditions across the west, Peace being dry, southeast here, West Manitoba, very, very wet. What seems to be the level of optimism? Is it? I talked to some guys this morning and we're saying, we're 0% seeded, but we're still like in this sort of, it's going to be okay. Like it's not.
Well, I think certainly I try and keep in touch with farmers from all over the prairies and maybe a little bit more in Saskatchewan because I'm based here, but there are certainly those that probably did better this year than they thought. We had some really, really nasty weather last year too, and farmers are, for the most part, southeast exempt, of course, maybe a little further ahead than they thought they'd be last year, and in the face of actually great crop prices, it's a little easier to swallow, missing out on a third of your acres when, you're likely to turn a pretty good profit on the rest of them. So, and I think farmers they're innovative and they're adaptable and that's what they're doing. So.
There's been some speculation with people I've talked to that there's going to be a very, very strong machinery purchase market this fall. Have you been hearing much about that?
I haven't. It's so that's interesting. Although I suppose it's always been my kind of thinking that, or I noticed that when we have kind of an average sort of year, or pretty good, you get a lot of the machinery things. If you have a super, super good year, then a lot of the equipment dealers sell out. So not everybody can buy what they want to buy, and then if we have, of course, really crummy year, no one's got any money. So we could actually be shaping up to overall what ends up being average to really decent, and so that could very well be the case. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Lyndsey.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun.